Welcome back, everyone, to LCS Academy. It's time for us to keep powering through our day after some exciting games, complete with the base race and everything. But we are getting into Team Liquid versus 100 Thieves. Crumbs, this should be a pretty fiery one.
It should be, considering how Cloud9 has just lost against FlyQuest. So if Team Liquid wins here, they are now 2 wins ahead of the second place team in Cloud9. So it's a big chance for them to get ahead of second place. But on the flip side, a loss here makes the competition a lot tougher, though, with the way that Team Liquid have been playing, considering that 100 Thieves did lose yesterday, didn't have the same momentum that FlyQuest has. I'm still looking at TL as the heavy favorites.
Until they pick up a loss, there's no reason not to look at them as favorites, right? But that's not to discount what 100 Thieves bring to the table. Focusing on Team Liquid a bit more, though, and what has been working out so well for them is the fact that, hey, a lot of their players have been standing out in various ways. Specifically, first one to come to mind is Armeo in the jungle, who has been a mainstay for so much time, whether in the LCS or here, has a previous Academy title under his belt during his time over on TSM, and the consistency with which he has been able to facilitate the rest of the team and get them ahead has been truly something to admire.
He's still keeping on, still trying his hardest to make it into the big leagues here. Had the opportunity with TL when they were without Santorin, and keeps being a really solid jungler in Academy here, and is having one of his better splits here. Already has had some very impressive ones thus far. So here with Ayla, though, comboing so well, and you love to see Jenkins and the support just flashing in, trying to make sure that they all combo through. And even though the fight looks a little bit wonky, though, that willingness to commit for everybody and be synergistic is what you love to see out of Team Liquid. We've heard from them. They're just looking to all be on the same page. And when you're on the same page and the execution is spot on, you get these really good team fights.
And you mentioned that ability to trust the team and make those plays happen, because when you're looking at comps like this, right, someone like Jenkins, who, if he's on the Lulu, he's relying upon those carries of the team to be able to make the most of that wild growth and having the effect on those team fights. So it is truly a collective on the side of Team Liquid that are powering through these rankings and keeping themselves undefeated. But members of Team Liquid and other teams have noted that 100 Thieves have a lot of strength to themselves as well, despite coming a bit evenly within their actual record within the league. So when we're finding ourselves in these final moments and the last chances for people to pick themselves up, get a chance to skip right over to Proving Grounds without doing any additional tournaments, this is one of the teams that you have to keep your eyes on.
Yeah, you can't sleep on the Thieves. They are consistently dangerous in the league. So if you think that they're not going to be able to do much, that's when they surprise you the most. And so here in this matchup against FlyQuest, they did go off to a good start, but it was FlyQuest's late game and mid game decision making that made it easy for them to be able to come back into this game. And I think a big part that they have been finding success on is just giving themselves more tools to find picks. The Renekton, the Syndra, the Set, just have more champions that can pick the enemy off, because in Academy, the enemy is going to be out of position. And so when you don't have those tools, you're letting them get away with mistakes that otherwise would have been gold in your pocket.
And when you look at those who might be capitalizing upon the mistakes, or those that you want to be making the plays on the side of 100 Thieves, a lot are looking towards Kenvi and Tenacity, that duo that came over from 100 Thieves next, that has been making waves across Academy and their ability to aggress and create leads in that lane and for the rest of their teams. We've obviously seen both Ryoma and Poom when they were in the LCS, and Poom continuing to be a talent that we're looking to develop. When he first came into the scene, it was such a rise for him from next to Academy to LCS, now getting some more of that time to come into the player that he wants to be, as somebody who had already been prioritizing kind of those engaged supports, those playmakers, and having that mentality in a meta like this can be absolutely the game changer.
Yeah, the mentality, and also knowing that the team is supporting you, because you've got Ryoma and Poom who had played those games last year on the main roster. Didn't work out, but when they got the Golden Guardians lineup, they didn't kick them. They put them into Academy and are still trusting them. So seeing these two players develop, I think, should be a testament to what 100 Thieves sees in them, because it's already now the second year. So it'll be cool. Like, often we have all these new players that have 1 year, but what about the 2 year rookies? What do they look like under these teams that are priding themselves for talent development? So I think that the more we get these new players going through these pipelines, the better we can start to look at the future and know, well, how long does it take to come up with a solid NA talent to develop them from amateur to champion of sorts?
And looking at new coaches too over on 100 Thieves, I'm so excited to get to watch Golden Glue develop into this role with this roster. And he's off on the other side of Spawn in this case, who has a lot of coaching experience for him that he has been able to apply so effectively to this Team Liquid Academy roster. I think there's a lot of fun to be had there as well in the strategies that they're bringing forward in developing these teams. And it is worth noting on the side of Team Liquid, when you're talking about the coach and the relationship that they have with the players, the fact that Ayla and Harry are mainstays that came over from OCE. They have worked with Spawn already in the past, so some of that synergy that we often talk about with player to player relationship can be there effectively in the coach to player relationship too, being that that is somebody that you're looking to trust as much as possible in the development of yourself and the rest of your squad.
I mean, the synergy aspect is always one where we're always thinking, like, should it take a while, should it not? But so often synergy just means how long does it take for the teammates to be able to tell each other to their face, hey, that play you made sucked and cost me my lane. And the other the teammate to say, you know what, that was bad, how can we fix it? And when you can actually tell that to each other's faces without getting emotional, without getting personal and thinking that someone has it out for you, when it's an understanding that it's about just growing the team and that this is the quickest way to do so, then that's when real progress can begin. And I think that that's usually one of the biggest hurdles for developing synergy that players have.
Yeah, developing synergy, developing the players like Jan that are coming here from Scouting Grounds does have that 100 Thieves Next experience. There are actually a lot of players here that have 100 Team Next experience, I think, because it was one of the early orgs to have that next level of development. So it's kind of just this, you're seeing that mark as it spreads out and really applying that. And I think you can expect more now that there is the integration. We have Academy, but then from this point on, some will be moving into Proving Grounds, and then some will have to be going into those additional tournaments, racking up more games for them to be gaining that experience here on out. But as far as a lane that you're looking out for, any specific portion of this map or player matchup, what is intriguing you most, Crumbs?
I think the top lane is intriguing this time because Jenkins has been quietly very impressive this play. Usually my eyes don't go towards Jenkins, but he's moved away a lot more from the Kennen. His champion pool has been developing, and we saw from the earlier highlights, solo kills are coming out of his lane. He says he's been learning from Alfari, and Tenacity, who had been getting hyped up as a top laner, has been getting picked on a few times. So we'll see what Jenkins versus Tenacity fares out to be.
Yeah, the Lulu solo kill, one to remember. It's time for our game number 4 of the day between Team Liquid Academy and 100 Thieves Academy. Team Liquid taken to the blue side here, and 100T over on red, donned in the colors that they like most. But right off the bat, it's going to be jungler bans that come to the table. No Graves, no. Okay, interesting. TK also taken off of the table here alongside the Udyr.
TK is a global, basically, right? The mid game ends up playing him out like a Twisted Fate ultimate. It's 8,500 range on his max ultimate. It's not one that you're playing a lot with. You're usually with the second rank of it, but that's still a very large range. And so when you're on red side as 100 Thieves, it could be something that is really annoying to deal with if you get both counter picked in the top lane and then have to deal with a support that's teleporting to the back of your lane every time. So I like the ban here out of TL, and clearly they know what is gonna work for them since they are at a 7-0. First picking the Azir, just so strong right now, and I think everybody is shying away from Corki as the answer, so we'll see if we go back to just control mages as a response.
Both Harry and Ryoma are very comfortable on that Azir as well, and still seeing some of those kind of supportive style bans taken off the table. Were you hoping for The Annie.
Yeah, the hover, the Orianna hover is just a snooze fest. I mean, come on, guys. How many years of this matchup must we see? We have other options. There's other possibilities against the Azir, but it's just so easy to go with your standard control mages. You know, teams like EG might bust out the Echoes, right? Different kinds of matchups. And Syndra is just, oh, come on, you know what's going to happen. No one's really killing each other in lane. They're just farming away and hoping to combo in the team fight.
I feel like I'm so jaded from when picks that don't seem super meta still get changes and thinking, oh, maybe that'll bring it into the meta. Like the Annie hover, right? It was sometime towards the end of last year. This year, the shield got reworked a bit so you can apply it to others. And it's like, oh, she has a bit more viability as support. Maybe people will bring her in through. And you just see that change and you think, but it won't be enough to see her come through. Oh, okay. So we got the Skarner locked in for Team Liquid Academy being piloted by our Mayo Crumbs looking to lock on some targets.
Skarner is a very funny champion. I think he's hilarious, but he's only funny if you actually have way more physical damage now. So Jenkins should most definitely be picking a physical damage top lane right now. Otherwise, you're trolling. It makes it too easy for the enemy to itemize Quicksilver Sash and then mitigate everything you want to do as Skarner. So if Jenkins has that, Renekton's still available. That can now be really deadly. One of the best combos you can do is to have things like Gangplanks and just champions that have armor shred. So him with his barrels, even champions like Nasus, Darius, these kinds of physical damage, true damage-ish he picks that then you can combo with the Skarner because the itemization for the enemy becomes so difficult. If you buy QSS, yeah, you deal with Skarner, but you're getting no value from the magic resistance. So these are the kinds of ways that you can combo with the Skarner that I hope Team Liquid keep in mind.
Yeah, Captain Flowers ain't here, but he'd be saying something like, hell yeah, about the Skarner being locked in here. And then also explaining that, yes, when the enemy team ends up itemizing against you to make that impale less effective, so you don't really have a lot of good targets to go after, then you can find yourself in very dangerous territory when trying to synergize and make something work for the rest of your team. 100 Thieves Academy, though, they're bringing some powerful picks to the table. They did lock in the Olaf, but the Gragas that has suffered some bans today, but we haven't actually gotten to see come onto the Rift just yet.
Yeah, and this Gragas can be blinded as well, so flexed, so it can be top or it can be in the support role. So it's a good response here on your fourth pick on the red side. So TL will round out that physical damage with the Aatrox in the top lane. And now more than anything, I'm curious, what does Tenacity do against the Aatrox? Because we saw Darshan had counterpick with the Vayne, didn't go very well. But we have seen other players pick champions like Gangplank that are still available and just obliterate the laning phase. So Tenacity, this is the time. GP could be really strong here against Skarner and Leona. Could synergize here, but do you want to have the support Gragas? Instead, it's going to be Set.
And Poom has piloted the Set before here, so we can assume that's exactly where that is going to stay. So it is Tenacity on the Gragas here in the top lane matchup against the Aatrox that we will be having. And there are a couple ways that you can build Gragas depending on what you're looking for the rest of the team, so that you can have some powerful, really lockdown and just trying to affect and position for the team fights later and maybe get some of that pressure off in the lane, but it can be a dangerous place for him here.
Yeah, the Gragas can be full tank here, but you don't really need it. I think you do have Poom and Kenvi to be really useful here. AP Gragas can be very useful too. It's just a matter of, do you need it to get past the laning phase? Because if you're getting picked on, that's usually when you index into AD. And Jenkins has not changed his summoner. I'm drawing attention to it right now because its clock is turning down, but he should be taking teleport and still has smite.
Well, let's hope that gets changed for Jenkins' sake and the rest of the team going into this, because let's see, we're going into the game. Team Liquid Academy versus 100 Thieves Academy. We'll see what lineups they have finally brought through with their whole collection and everything as soon as we do. But this is game 4 of 5 of the day. Team Liquid Academy still undefeated. An important note on the side of 100 Thieves when we're talking about the rosters and the changes. Luger did play yesterday, and they got that win against FlyQuest Academy. So I believe this is only the second game that we'll be seeing from him down here in the bot lane. Some great performances by Andy Bendy in the games prior, but now this is the mainstay bot that we should be seeing. And luckily, there is a TP on that Aatrox in the top lane. We can wipe the sweat off of our foreheads here, Crumbs.
Yeah, Wizard Jenkins there baiting us all, getting the switch right at the very end. That's the kind of stuff that you actually get trained in solo queue, being able to switch at the very last minute. That way you get your teammates or somebody else sweating bullets, see if you can get somebody else to dodge. It's going to be a sweeper invade here, though, and Aatrox is collapsing. So TL wants to fight because Aatrox is here, and they don't know that Gragas has not spotted the Aatrox just yet. And here we go.
Ayla flashes in and takes a bunch of the damage, and Jan's here to continue with the auto attack, so that's first blood. The kill credit goes over to Ayla, but they're continuing to collapses on Boom, who flashes out. Unfortunate to be using that summoner right before your death, but it was just the Hex, so you should be fine. In the end, that's 2 kills going over to Team Liquid to kick things off and put their bot lane ahead with a couple of assists to their junglers as well.
It's one thing when you get outplayed individually, but when you get outplayed as a team, that's when it really stings. Look at Ayla lingering on the back, so 100 Thieves is feeling very confident. They think they know where the fight is coming out from, and so Kenvi gets really far out and thinking that he can get the Skarner Scry Orb, but then the instant commitment from Leona and Skarner, you love to see it, flashing in, using the Zenith Blade to reposition, Skarner with the flash stun to keep the Olaf there so the combo goes through, and then everybody else that flashed out had no hope of escaping, and already we're off to a tremendous start for TL.
That Leona positioning making all the difference, from 100 Thieves thinking that it was an even numbers potential advantage that they could try and make something happen from, to getting collapsed upon from multiple angles and punished for it. So Team Liquid, with that, you're able to come to this with a lot more strengths on your side. Ayla already making sure to get the boots, so you get enough from that kill initially to have some kind of itemization that you can benefit from immediately off those initial kills.
Yeah, the boots will help the roams, and it won't help the lane, though, since they will not be able to reset, since they have to go straight back to the lane, have just conceded the flashes earlier, so they're happy losing this lane, and it'll be a more quiet early game. It's up to 100 Thieves to get something on the map right now from the aftermath of that skirmish, and we'll see now if Poom can actually pull something off, because level 2, you have enough to dash into someone and stun them, and looking for Harry here with the Hex Flash.
That's true, but in this case with Harry, kind of seeing what was coming to him, decides to step over towards that top side. There are blue side wards that are coming through on that top side as well, which gives Harry kind of the indication that he can extend more effectively onto that side for some defense. And it is known to Team Liquid too that Kenvi was just lurking over in this bot side jungle. You can see the pings coming out, which gives some freedom to the rest of the squad to know exactly where they can go from here. Ayla also continuing to stay here on the mid side. Ryoma's been chunked down, used some of the charges from the Corrupting Potion already, tries to get the Hex in, but nothing going to come from it.
Both supports just trying to Hex Flash into the mid lane.
Yeah.
So dominant. You can Hex Flash on my mid laner, and I will do the same in this matchup here. Not enough mana on Tenacity to keep chasing this one out, despite the wave begging to be thinned out. So still very quiet early game despite the beginnings, and it's those summoners being absent. Team Liquid is very happy with this though because of the Skarner pick. So you got a level 6 jungler, he gets to rush boots, you got kills that slowed the early game down, and that kind of ensures that the Skarner will get to a very dangerous point, which is level 6 and the lane states being intact.
Yeah, he's already got those boots of swiftness, so that's going to make things a little easier for him against any of the slowing effects that have to come in from the other side when he goes for these ganks. That low mana on the side of Tenacity means that he'll have to continuously back up from this in the 1v1 here on top, and down bot. that advantage that was built up before by Team Liquid. You notice that there's been some extra attack damage that is indexed into by Yon, which you often see as a way to just continue trying to apply this lane pressure and just make it easier for yourself in the farming regard. But meanwhile, Poom doing his best to keep the vision secured as a Drake objective is up currently, and Kenvi is making his rotation.
Yeah, he's got it. The bot lane has priority, and it's so easy for the Kai'Sa to lane here into Xayah. Like, Xayah's harassment feels like she actually needs to aim her Q, right? Be skilled at it, versus Kai'Sa just presses it and it auto-targets. So the harass is almost always guaranteed to be a little bit more reliable on the side of 100 Thieves. That helps the bot lane out. But here's a flip.
Oh, Emperor's Fight, go ahead and push Ryoma back. The stun, Armeo is locked onto this target. The flash to get Ryoma out of this engage, using the last charge on the Corrupting Potion to stay here. And that is not a kill going into the pocket of Team Liquid, but a flash used.
Okay, I mean, the flash is something. You can always go back to it, since Harry and Armao do have their flashes, so they'll be able to play a visit back to this lane. They just really didn't have enough damage, and it's because they haven't built any damage pieces just yet. It's only MR and HP.
Oh, even coming in for the knock of Poom. He is still here. Great play on set, and that's the final use of that Hex Flash to go through and continue to get that kill. So it's actually both ADCs in this case that were traded here.
Oh, the TL spam right at the end, and Ayla and Poom will have a little bit of a kerfuffle still over the minion wave. We'll let him go instead, but supports, last one standing there. We'll see how this played out, because they see Luger right away, and the big thing is that TL recognized that the AD does not have cleanse, so she's not able to survive the initial stun, and it's a freebie. It's just that the set is also really good at returning damage once you commit for somebody else.
Yeah, just you could even see what was able to happen. The Facebreaker to kind of get a bit of that disrupt, survive, make sure that you get that trade kill. Good on Poom to ensure that they did get some kind of even exchange out of there. And now with that, both supports, they seem like they really want to hang out mid just as much as they want to hang out bot. And they're often doing so when mirroring one another, as they do end up colliding there in the river side, because Jenkins and Tenacity still being left on their own pretty much here towards top.
Oh yeah, and you really are okay with just leaving these top laners by themselves, because they're not easy to gank with the kind of champions that you have. The Gragas already building tank with a Skarner that has no DPS, not really the ideal target. And same thing with the Aatrox and the Olaf, but they know that their jungler is not here, so they'll back off.
Armeo end up rotating back over towards mid, so no attempted Zenith Blade or anything to overcommit to an engage in these parts. Kenvi is still hanging out over in the jungle side, ready to give that blue buff over towards Ryoma to improve the laning phase, but Yan actually gets brought in a little bit by Poom using the Facebreaker, and Poom takes a lot of damage in that, but we are still kind of just in that poking phase. When you do get an engage there towards the river, you could see how ready the rest of the team was to rotate over if 100 Thieves did get into any trouble there on the bot side.
Yeah, and TL is not going to give them that fight, though, because our Mao is getting the herald. So you see that Yun and Ayla could have gotten in trouble there, could have gotten in range and remained in range of 100 Thieves' potential to engage on them, but they don't have to, because they're already getting something on the map. I mean, it's that kind of cross-map restraint that TL is showing that allows them to get the free objectives on the map that 100 Thieves is allowing to happen, like that Rift Herald that we just saw. So when TL is doing this, you know that they're looking for another kill.
Zenith Blade and the Facebreaker. There's the ultimate coming from Yan to keep himself safe from the follow-up damage, and then Luger gets poked out to go back over towards the bush, and Poom keeping himself between his ADC and the rest. Yan, the little bit of sustain that he has available to keep himself alive, does not end up getting killed off here, and still even has the cleanse if needed. They'll be able to farm up right now to build up some more of that HP, but low on mana as well, so this is going to be a reset.
That was really close, and Poom aiming the center of his haymaker right onto the AD carry made a big difference. Could have almost taken him out. And here Ayla, though, doesn't have Ignite, but we'll look for Poom, try to make sure that he doesn't tank this wave and hopefully deny more of the CS for his AD, because despite TL getting these positive engages, they haven't been farming that well. The level 1, the commitment that they had to spend in resources for those kills did hurt the laning phase. So 100 Thieves have been playing off of that since the very first minute.
Yeah, and you do have to be careful about that output damage when you do consider things like the Haymaker, as you mentioned, getting that true damage right there at the center as opposed to the weaker on the outskirts. But Team Liquid as well, we have seen kind of that tempered disposition from them to make sure that they do survive when things are close like that. Yes, it's kind of a little bit of a chance aspect, but Jan also making sure to use his ult effectively to keep himself safe when the damage is coming down most, so that you don't give any more or too much of a lead over to the 100 Thieves side when they're so clearly trying to get that farm onto the Kai'Sa, make this late game threat possible when they do get into that team fight territory. And Tenacity and Jenkins still just going to keep going here in the top lane. Jenkins marked down fairly low. Wow, that's actually pretty low. So he does have to get some of that lifesteal available for that heal up here. And the smackdown onto Tenacity. That's going to be a flash forward. Oh, it ends up landing in Jenkins. You are a shot away from death, my friend. And death has found you. Not the Deathbringer in this case, but the receiver.
Oh, it looked like Tenacity knew right away that he was going to commit to the fight, whereas Jenkins was still not sure if a fight was going to happen. So he does not use his cooldowns as aggressively as Tenacity, and so ends up losing a fight that was very, very close. And they have to back off because Gragas has TP, and they can always get surprised whether he has ultimate or not. He's tank, he has a ward to get on the back line, and has good stuns to follow up. So the 100 Thieves top laner winning that skirmish allows the rest of the squad to secure the dragon, and now Tenacity's starting to come into his own with a few more games that should give him the confidence to match the hype that he came into the league with.
You have to appreciate the cross-map awareness on both sides, whether it be in that moment, like you're saying, the fact that that kill was achieved by Tenacity in the top lane, having the TP available, 100 Thieves already onto the Drake objective. Team Liquid did not want to have anything in that fight, and then it's the same way that we saw before, the bot lane knowing when that was being taken top, but here's actually the engage. Jenkins went to go ward, but it's Kenvi here that is with the chase down, has his speed up on the ready, and Tenacity is here in full pursuit, even the flash from the jungler to follow up, and Jenkins once again eliminated. Back-to-back deaths from him to start shifting the pressure of that top side towards red.
Another one, and TL responds with the Rift Herald though, 3-manning the mid lane with Xayah threatening, but it's not something that 100 Thieves is too worried about. That advantage in the top side is big, and once again, Tigers, it's so easy. You just follow who does not have flash. Jenkins didn't have one, so showing up to his lane when you have a very good gank assist from the Gragas is nice and easy. This will only be the cleanse for Luger. He is not worried about this at all. This is why he takes the Summoner spell.
And while the Solar Flare from Leona is one of the lower ult cooldowns later on in the game, it is just an effective way to get any kind of engage here. So, yep, go ahead. Use that cleanse here, baby. You don't want to get locked down, especially when it looked like it was so on the head as that one was going to be. But are they going to end up going and trying to counter-engage here? Yep, there's the Zenith Blade over onto Luger, and the ultimate from Set to bring Yon back, but it is responded with an ultimate of his own. Ryoma ended up TPing here in the back, and that's a pop onto Yon. Luger getting the kill credit for this one. A great awareness and play from Ryoma to make sure that he was here to give them the answer. 2 kills on the side of 100 Thieves against Team Liquid.
Oh, the action doesn't stop.
Oh no, there's the Impale, the flash over, the Empress to Divide too. The stun ends up landing onto our Mayo and Harry, who rotate directly back over towards the mid lane. Ryoma chunked down fairly low, but does not fall himself, so no more deaths to be had.
Okay, a lot of things are happening here, but 100 Thieves is really responsible for the setup of it. That ward in the back, knowing that, hey, we don't have a cleanse onto the Kai'Sa, but the set needs to be constantly looking out for the counter engage. So Poom's heads up play there, flashing and getting the Xayah into the enemy team, buys just enough time for the Syndra to combo in there. And I gotta say, Tigers, I am not feeling this Skarner pick at all. That is 2 ganks onto Ryoma, and he can just get away from it so easily. I think other junglers might have had a little bit more damage or something else, a little more pizzazz to get these kills, because those should have been 2 kills on a very dead Syndra, who now is deathless and pretty powerful. Shouldn't be there.
Even, oh, but here we go. Another Zenith play, the Solar Flare in the back, but Kenvi can actually just run right past this. Ayla flashes forward, but Poom is coming here from the flank, does end up getting the face breaker to bring him back, and Yon poking as much as he can from the outskirts, but the poke isn't going to be enough, and once again, the support falls.
You know, when you're playing jungle in a pro game and you have a bottom lane like what TL is playing, what Luger and Poom are probably spam pinging and spam saying to the jungle is, this guy keeps Eing on cooldown. Ayla is using Zenith's Blade off cooldown. Go after him. Camp this lane. So they see that Leona constantly does that, so they learn, all right, just send the jungler down, have somebody ready to respond, and thus far, it's worked twice. It's gotten 2 really nice kills and continues to get more pressure on the 100 Thieves bot lane that has a pretty big CS discrepancy.
Which has really allowed Luger to pull ahead here. You can see that the Gale Force is already completed, still being worked up towards on the side of Yon, and this turret had already gotten a fairly hefty chunk down from that Rift Herald that happened prior, where they were able to get some plates off of it effectively too, but you'll just see the continued harass. Boom. It's coming from the outside, but that's the shuffle from Harry to make sure that you position Ryoma to get locked down by Armeo, who brings him to the back line, and it's Harry that ends up falling, though, on the opposite side. They get the trade of the mid laners and some more ultimates to come. The Solar Flare to try and initiate, but everybody is falling down low in AP on the bot lane side of 100 Thieves. Jenkins is here to follow up. Boom still fairly low. Yon activates his ultimate, and it's a couple shots for death for Boom. Armeo is the one to zip on to the back to try and finish it off, and Tenacity, as low as you are, it is still high enough to make sure that Scorpion gets his head cut right off. Jenkins full HP nearly after his sustain that he can bring back through. So it's just him standing alongside Tenacity here in the mid lane. Another skirmish breaking out.
We are getting hyphy finally, and they once again go after Ryoma, who does not have flash, and once again it takes forever for Skarner to kill her, so it takes Leona to actually follow through him. The initial engage just trades 1 for 1, but the ensuing mess after is where Jenkins thrives. The Aatrox in a 4v4, not a lot of healing reduction, few crowd control moves allow him to really shine, but the party's not over as Dragon is still being taken and TL is in position. Zaya and Skarner are racing to this pit.
You can see Luger is coming over from the base right now, so it'll be some time before that damage follows up, and Kenvi actually takes a lot of shots, and Jenkins is rotating over from the bot side. Can they get the engage? Here it is, another Solar Flare into the back, but it is the jungler on the side of 100 Thieves has been marked low. Team Liquid seeing if they can follow any of this up. Kenvi trying to get the mark down, and it is the stun onto 2 members of Team Liquid. The attempt from Harry to go through with the ultimate to push them off of this. The 100 Thieves come out on top. Another Drake secured for themselves, and the objectives are continuing to roll in their favor.
That fight was so close, just by a hair, and so many different abilities. So it was really cool to see Jenkins flanking over from the side, but he was not able to combo Ryoma right away. He hit all 3 spells, even an auto attack with chains, but Syndra lives. And so while that is happening, TL is losing the fight on the top side of the map. So watch Jenkins here, because he doesn't have the ultimate to go after Ryoma, and that is why his damage is not that high. So while the rest of the team gets separated by an amazing Gragas cast, Jenkins does not get to kill Ryoma, and so because the Syndra lives, she now gets to have an amazing stun when the Azir was dashing forward. That dash could have saved the fight for Team Liquid. Instead, dies right away. Skarner didn't even get the pop ultimate, and now Team Liquid is potentially facing down the first loss of their split.
It seems like the difficulty in taking out Ryoma as soon as possible is posing more problems, because even looking before that Drake fight, when we saw that mid skirmish and the mid laners were traded, it was actually an initial engage from Armeo to take out Ryoma, and in the time it took to kill him is when Harry ended up dying. And then here in this fight, the fact that Ryoma could even be around to deal the damage, whether it's the damage or elsewhere, but Armeo, he's speeding up! He is a zoomy boy. I got you with my little stinger, but there's a Solar Flare again to follow up, and all the members of Team Liquid are piling onto Poom to see if they can get this singular pick in their favor before backing off. And Ayla taking some shots from Luger when he gets the single targets from the missiles, forming themselves into one dead baby, but it's not enough damage, so they don't get a trade back. And Team Liquid putting a lot into getting the single support pick.
Our Mayo speeding through is like when you just lift up the carpet and see a little bug just scattering across the floor. You're like, oh my god, it's there, it's alive. That's kind of what it looked like. It's so fast, skittering across Summoner's Rift, and this is just going to be a little hello, a little cheeky goodbye as well. And I mean, that's what they have to keep doing, right? The Skarner pick needs way more of that. We just never got to that stage before team fights. We needed to see way more picks while the laning phase was still going on, and multiple of those did fail in the mid lane, which is, I think, what they would have liked to have turned into a kill. But a few more of those from our Mayo, and I think they can really start to claw back into this game, because there are no QSSs yet on the side of 100 Thieves, and that's usually the way that you really stop the Skarner from having a good game. And thus far, they have yet to buy them. Doesn't look like anybody's building them anytime soon. They don't even have inventory space for it. So I think that our Mao with Flash should be able to get either Ryoma or Luger before this next fight. And as soon as I say it, QSS.
There you go. You get a little reminder. Oh, right. This is the thing that we should probably work into to render our Mayo ineffective. And that is the biggest thing when it comes to this kit is, yes, you can get those picks. Yes, if you have follow-up damage, but there is itemization that can completely nullify some of what he brings to the table, especially in a team fight when you have a lot of others to be able to follow up on the difference in positioning. But here it comes at that point where we're still a minute and 20 seconds away from the next Drake spawning. 100 Thieves have done a great job. Oh, Yon actually having to go in and follow up after taking a little bit of poke of his own onto Luger. So I'm just so ready for a fight at any point in this game, Crumbs.
It's the Gale Force ADs just being cheeky with each other. You Gale Force forward and harass me, I will Gale Force forward and attack you a little bit and then heal off the wave casually. So it's both testing out their limits, seeing what they can do, because that kind of move late game can one-shot a carry. So the practice here of this isn't just for cheeky harass. It can actually turn into a pick that wins you the game.
It's that... Oh, we might be getting a little bit of the 3v3 here. You can see that Harry is on his way, and then even Jenkins coming from the side. There's Ayla going in a little bit. Some poke from these soldiers can really scale up to be pretty damaging later on. But the entirety of 100 Thieves are here to play against Team Liquid. See who ends up making the move first.
Yeah, watch the AD carries. That's a big one there, where Yeon and Luger are attacking. Whoever is just free-firing most of the fight will usually win the game, since most of the other champions are just bursty. They're not that much DPS.
Up, and there you go. The zip in from Ayla and the response from Proom and the ultimate. Jan puts himself up into the air to try and dish out some damage. And Olaf has found himself fairly low, and Proom as well ends up flashing back to avoid the ultimate. And everybody goes in on tenacity, flashes over the wall, the stun onto multiple members of Team Liquid. It is two that have fallen on the side of 100 Thieves, now outnumbered by Team Liquid in this regard. So this Drake becoming a lot more risky for them to try and take, but it is so low that one of the players is on Team Liquid, so Ayla actually had to back in this regard. Poom, he's found himself fairly forward. It's going to be one more smack before he finds his death, and Ryoma also getting caught out. Armeo is directly on his tail to try and bring him to the rest of the team, and Luger has been completely separated by Jenkins. They get the pick onto one, and now it's Luger all alone. Can't even find Solus under the tower. Whoa, there was the flashing from Jenkins into tower range to take the damage and dies in the process. But in the end, he's the only one to die on the side of Team Liquid. They get this Drake to avoid the stacking, and 100 Thieves lose out in that fight.
TL just sees the game differently here, because Ayla finds an angle on the banana brush that 100 Thieves is just barely unable to follow up on. Team Liquid then commits to that side, and so the Kaisa and Syndra are not free firing. They're zoned off by the Aatrox, while the Xayah gets a free fire, and they just do so much work for the side of TL. They really understood their range and kind of the formation where both teams were fighting around, and a big part of it was that the Kaisa and Syndra were not attacking. So watch, if he goes in, watch, Xayah is just constantly attacking ultimate, and then the Kaisa is just zoned away from the Aatrox. So then Jenkins and Skarner just get the kite back to the left, while Azira and Zaya have been 3D firing this whole time. It's so much harder for the carries in 100 Thieves to follow up, and you don't want the Kai'Sa to just dive in right away to the backline if the Syndra isn't there to immediately burst somebody. She will look like a fool if she doesn't get the kills right away. It just goes into her death.
Ugh, it's so much of a combination that you have to just be really happy to see when you see the lock-in, Armeo being able to pull a lot of these targets towards them, but then the reach that comes from the rest. This was a little bit of a funky moment, some eagerness perhaps to make sure that they ended up getting that security and maybe anticipating a flash on the opposite side, because you always want to be wary when plays like that happen too. But Team Liquid did end up coming out on top there and bring some of that momentum back towards them. The gold's still in their favor here. Tenacity ends up using his belly, and there's another lock on him from Armeo. It worked out so well for them last time. Here's a TP coming from the top side too. Another lock in onto Tenacity, and those soldiers still going to poke him down. Nobody dies just yet though. You do still have the protections of this portion of the jungle to keep that separation between you and the rest.
Not the ideal target to pull in the Gragas, but there aren't many other options. There's still the Banshees on Ryoma, and Olaf and Kai'Sa are out of the question. So Set, if you put him into the team, good chance he can actually just combo you into them. So I like the move to go for Gragas. It looked very close though, so a little bit closer into the late game and you'll be able to go right after him. It's typically a mistake that a lot of tanks end up making into the late game, is feeling like you're never going to be picked on, that the Skarner won't go after you, and now they're going after him. Who doesn't have flash. Armao?
Oh no, he was way over into that riverside, and Harry was actually over on the top side trying to get some of this cleared. Nobody was there to be able to follow up. 100 Thieves, just by taking out that jungler now, have locked their eyes onto the Baron. Everybody else on Team Liquid are hoping maybe after some of this poke is taken onto 100 Thieves, they can make something happen here to at least force them to peel off. Some of the poke going onto Poom, but he has set his eyes onto Ayla. That's one target that you can get, but he's actually chunked down in the process. Jenkins overlocked onto Ryoma. The follow-up from Azir, and Jenkins has activated his ultimate to keep himself in this fight. Luger, too much damage coming out. Tenacity as well goes golden. It is a singular top laner being joined by that bot lane to see if they can finish that off. Poom rotating over from the jungle side, and that is a death on the side of Team Liquid. Jan and Ayla, now the only one standing, facing off against this lonely Gragas. Poom knows that he can't make anything happen here, ends up backing off, and that is 4 members dead, traded on the side of 100 Thieves for the 2 that fell on Team Liquid, trying to make a lot happen off of that initial jungle pick, but it ended up backfiring.
That Baron might as well have never existed, so we get a fight on so many different fronts. 100 Thieves has Poom and Tenacity engaged on the backside, but then Olaf and Kai'Sa are still on the Baron, so TL is like, there is a Syndra by herself without flash, just kill her right away. Great Emperor's Divide to prevent the follow-up, but then Yeon and Leona are just demolishing the rest of the team. Poom can't get back in until it's already dashed back in. Olaf had no ultimate from the previous fight, and so even though 100 Thieves had the Baron, the initial call was mixed. It was simultaneously to turn and to do the Baron. And so because they had a split call, Team Liquid was in a position to both capitalize on the straggling members and the ones that finished the objective. So with only Poom having this objective, they're not going to be able to get anything from a Baron push.
And we are at that point, if you're looking at where a lot of this damage is coming from. Jan able to hit so hard with the Gale Force as an attempted engage over here on Ayla, but they are near this turret. Ends up actually going in with the Zenith Blade before having to force out. Poom uses the ultimate to lock onto the Skarner, but it is still towards this tower. Kenby goes golden, but that is a stun directly onto Poom. He flashes over into the riverside to keep himself alive, but Kenby falling pretty low. The knock-up over into the back from Jenkins, and it's 4 members alive on Team Liquid, trying to chase down the very low team members on 100 Thieves. But Poom brings himself back into the fray, maybe hoping to buy some time for his team, but it's not enough time. Kenby still collapsed upon by Team Liquid. Luger now in the eyes of Jenkins, who gets the shutdown onto the enemy ADC. And Ryoma, when you have no other protections available to you, honey, you cannot get a foot or an orb anywhere near this Drake. So Team Liquid grabbing another for themselves after another successful fight.
Ew, what is happening to Jenkins this split? I am so impressed by him this time around, because so many times this Aatrox is going into this fight, even that last, and I'm thinking, all right, he's about to die. This is surely the times where we've seen Jenkins or Aatrox go into these fights and immediately they'll get popped. But no, playing on the knife's edge, knowing his limits way better than last year. And this is a fight that 100 Thieves knows they have initially won because the carries are so low, but they can't keep going further. So the Azir and Xayah are constantly damaging the enemy, and then it buys enough time for Aatrox to go in. Watch, he's healing. Right, so he's a half HP, bam, another plus 500, just a little more, and now casually he's got a reset, just keeping going forward, and there's nothing you can do. Poom's like, all right, whatever, I got Baron, we're not doing anything with this. Maybe I can get a stun off and save my
I don't
team.
want to be purple anymore.
Yeah, I like the brave optimism out of him.
I mean, on that note of Jenkins and what he has been offering, his target selection in these fights has been so crucial too. Some of the earlier ones that weren't necessarily favorable for Team Liquid are when those damage dealers are alive just a little bit too long. But Jenkins, as soon as one gets out of range, completely diverts his attention. But it's this mid lane where we're continuing just to see the scrappiness because of the objectives that were surrounding it. We do have quite a bit of time before a Baron or a Drake becomes available. So potentially some resources pulled once again to get some of these lanes pushed.
Okay, and getting lanes pushed here on the side of Team Liquid is definitely going to help them get the vision that will prevent a flank. The flank is the way that they lost the fights when they were losing them. So as long as they know where the engage is happening, just as we've seen them deal with the Baron fight, they'll be fine. The Gragas and Olaf with a set running straight at you without flashing or hex flashing are very easy to deal with when you're a Xayah. So I think that the vision for TL is the absolute priority here. They already have all the damage they need here. Any extra itemization is just little cherries on top.
It does feel like there have been a few moments we see that engage coming, and it's the same way that Team Liquid sees it when something like a showstopper, yeah, you get someone targeted, you displace them, but a lot of times just ending up in prime position to get burned down himself despite being one of the tankier members, still working into his build there as well to stick around a bit more effectively in some of these team fights. But Team Liquid extending their gold lead 56.9 to 60k now, about 3.5 gold ahead of their opponents, and they have effectively started to push some of this vision up, not too aggressively, but it was more about trying to clear some of the resources of 100 Thieves because they are basically forced on that line of skirmish because of the way that these towers are down against the red side. That 100 Thieves cannot venture too far into their jungle without having somebody there to escort them because they do not want to get picked, especially if you run into someone like Armeo that can turn the tides against a singular target oh so effectively and then lead themselves into one of the future fights. Baron up in 10 seconds as well. Still a minute and a half before that Drake comes back into play.
Even if you've got somebody escorting you, there is a lot of damage on the TL side, so the Olaf ultimate could just get him killed right away, and we've already seen what Skarner pulling Gragas can do. He is fat, but not fat enough to survive 5 people going after him. They're going after Isla.
They got the stun onto Isla and tries to throw out as much utility as possible in the process, but this is an engage where Jan ends up getting popped. That's a majority of the damage. Luger marked down low, but puts himself in a position to try and burn down Jenkins. Jenkins into the back line, and he's dead. 3 taken out on the side of Team Liquid. You see how vulnerable they become once the majority of their damage is dealt with.
Yeah, the Azir wasn't there right away. 100 Thieves, it's like, doesn't matter if the initial fight looks even remotely bad, which it didn't. Leona was by herself pretty much, so they immediately pounced on it, just commit everything. I love how quickly they just commit everybody to it because they know even if Azir teleports, these few seconds that we have at a numbers advantage are exactly what we need to claw back into this game to not let it slip away. So we got ourselves a very long one here, as the Soul is not going to end the game. It's going to be determined by the Elder fight. So hopefully we get a replay of how that played out, because Yeon tried to outplay it, but there is just so many members on 100 Thieves side and so many flashes willing to be committed to follow the Xayah.
It's a banger, baby. 100 Thieves pulling ahead earlier in the game, but might get another fight down here. But it is Baron actually on all of the members of 100 Thieves compared to last time where the only lone survivor was Poom. Team Liquid have to be extremely careful when they're going for this. Armeo ends up going in to take the Gragas once more, so Tenacity gets chunked down to about 50% HP. The final hits do fall onto him. Ayla gets the final kill credit, but it's into the back line that one goes. Luger is back here to try and do some damage to the rest of the team that is infringing upon them on the side of Team Liquid, but they're just going to disengage from the rest of the fight. So it is a trade 1-for-1. Top laner using the ultimate from Skarner to make sure you secure that, and it is a trade for your support.
But TL is so happy about this. I mean, yeah, you lost the Cloud Soul, but that was the Baron that 100 Thieves has. So you're telling me the 100 Thieves with the Baron play still not able to even crack the mid-tier 1. They're not getting that much more gold on the map. And so that is what Team Liquid, I think, can be a little bit happy about. Here comes a push attempt. And without Azir in the mid lane, though, I don't think the 100 Thieves will have enough members to take it down. Xayah will be enough, though, to defend it. 4 members, definitely scary enough. And so, yeah, 100 Thieves get that Baron, but it pretty much gets traded for a Dragon Soul. So it just keeps pushing the game that much further into the late game, and you have an Azir and a Xayah who are just destructive in the late game.
And that you really have to be careful about, right? I mean, now we get to relive this last replay that led up to this.
So Azir shows up into the top side, and that's right away when you see 100 Thieves coming. The stun follows, and they have no hesitation. Kai'Sa instantly jumps in, has the QSS, can afford to use it a little bit late since there's no follow-up, and then a great stun there from the Syndra to displace the Skarner and Aatrox, keeping Kai'Sa alive, who, by the way, with that stealth upgrade being really difficult for the Aatrox to take down, that is the only reason she lived. And so many times we've seen Kai'Sa just live on a knife's edge, and here goes Ayla again!
Again and again, and then Luger immediately ults over to be able to finish that off, and that is the initiation for the rest of the engage to be possible. You see that Olaf has made his way into the backline, and for Spike to try and make quick work of this, but it is 3 that have fallen on the side of Team Liquid. Jenkins and Armeo trying to fight to stay alive, making their way back towards that tier 2 turret, but the original turret is still up on the side of 100 Thieves, so not every member can follow up on this. They have to wait for this wave before they can clear this out. No more Baron empowering for them, but they don't need it when they have the numbers advantage. They'll be able to plow through this second turret. Armeo keeping his body in front of them and the rest of the objectives as much as possible to slow it down. Jenkins coming back into the fight, but there are only 2 members up with Leona about to spawn. They will still be outnumbered by this 100 Thieves squad that are continuing to put the pressure. There's a knock-up directly under the Tower of the Solar Flare to try to do it, and boom, ends up isolating another member of Team Liquid. There's another death. That's a double kill, and that's the ace for 100 Thieves. They take down both of the Nexus turrets to get themselves the first win that anyone has seen against Team Liquid Academy all split long. And what a glorious feeling that it will be for them to break into these standings that much more.
Oh, the day of upsets. And Luger, he said, what, 2 games on 100 Thieves? 17 kills. What a great start there out of him. It's going to feel really good on 100 Thieves because it wasn't like they were in control that whole game. It felt like Team Liquid was clawing back. They were fighting their fights, but then they caught on to the pattern that Team Liquid was showing. They're being very aggressive. They're engaging without enough members. If we're quick enough to counter-engage, we can win. And so they went for it multiple times. They saw what they needed to do. Kai'Sa flying in, picking on the Leona when she went in, and that was the formula they repeated a few times and won the game with.
This was one of those matchups where with 100 Thieves having a strong early game, but Team Liquid, you can never discount the reason they are so strong and had been undefeated up until this point. Even in the games where they seem behind, they just have such great individual playmakers and cohesion to be able to turn those around back in their favor. But 100 Thieves managed to power through, and ever since that second Baron, followed that momentum through for a victory. Oh, that was quite a game. Lived up to all expectations that we had for Team Liquid Academy versus 100 Thieves Academy. We got one more game to go, my friends. So on the other side of this break, we will not only just have an interview, but get ourselves geared up for that. Stay tuned.